everybody, and welcome to the stream. I'm Jesse Showalter, and this is my good friend Elize. Elize, say what's up to the people.
Hello, welcome.
All right, let us know out there if you can see, if you can hear us all right. We are doing a special episode, and this is our boot camp for today, where we're going to talk about content creation. What are we going to talk about, Elize?
We're going to talk about our 5 tips for easy content creation. And we're going to talk about just our backgrounds and who we are as content creators. We're similar and we're also different in a lot of ways. And I think it's really great to talk about kind of our different experiences and things that we've learned, some of our challenges that we've had over the last few years. And so I'm excited to dive deep into it.
I'm excited too. Yes. I mean, with that being said, who are you? What kind of content do you create? What's your content story? Tell us, if you can, a little bit about you.
Well, it all started in 2019. It really did. About 2019, I was like, I would just like do some content. I want to talk about bad user experiences. So I did that. And then it just evolved. Like basically within a few months, I had someone reach out from Adobe that was like, hey, I saw this piece of content. Do you want to go on Adobe Live? And at the time I was a designer and I was running an agency, and after about a few years, I was like, I love creating content. I love talking about my journey and my challenges. And I love speaking and talking to people. So I started to convert into being more of a speaker and an educator. And I use content now, my social medias, to talk more about my personal journey and what really matters to me, you know, my self-growth journey. I'm a big personal development type of person. And so I've been growing more in that way. And it's great to see how like the content has evolved with me. And mostly I use Instagram for all of my content, most of my content. What about you, Jesse? What's your story?
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. Well, before I get into my story, we got people jumping in the chat like Oliver and Monica, and hey, everybody in the chat, Alvin Jones and Heba and Robert, if you have questions, feel free to just kind of hit those questions up in the chat. We want to answer questions. We want this to be a really engaging experience. And I think that's actually why I started my content journey as well about 6 years ago, is I had just, I had received so much. I've been mentored. I've had people pour into me. I had never gone to design school or anything like that. And I just realized that learning was so hands-on for me that I wanted to kind of give back in that moment. And so I actually chose YouTube as my primary content kind of like place to make content. And I just kind of started doing anything and everything I could to help people get into the industry. And so my story is really one of washing dishes and waiting tables and not knowing what to do. And then through hands-on kind of learning, I was able to create a career and create like, find a passion and do things. So I teach people tools. I teach people how to look at life, how to apply for jobs, how to learn new skills and kind of up-level themselves so they can get into a position they love. And it's been a fun journey. It's been really, really exciting. But I've learned a couple of things along the way. I'm not the fount of all knowledge, but I got a little teeny tiny bit. And I think between the both of us today, we have some cool stuff that we can kind of share out of those experiences. So kind of back to those big points, like what would you say is like the first big point or first big kind of idea about creating content?
Yeah, I want to get into that, but I was just, you know, after hearing what you were saying about your journey, I wanted to just mention for everybody who doesn't know how we met, actually, because in 2019, when I first created content, you were doing that. You were like willing to help me out. You got on a call with me to look at my social posts and give me feedback. And I just thought that was so, I was like very touched by that. And so just like on a personal note, I wanted to thank you and just like kind of see how it's so funny how the world works, right? 4 years later or something, to have us now talking about our content journey. So thank you so much, Jesse.
Absolutely.
So first thing that is something I like to think about for easy content creation, especially for people who are just getting started, is just point and shoot. The hardest thing when people, especially when they want to start doing video content, is they're just afraid to take that first step. So my suggestion is just get your phone, just put it on yourself, just record something that you're passionate about or excited about or something personal. And the thing about it is you don't even have to upload it. The first step is just starting to like get comfortable with taking out your camera, talking about something, maybe something happened in the moment, and just start getting into that habit of creating the content. And then maybe at some point you start to feel comfortable with uploading it, with sharing it, and even if it's just a private channel. So I always feel like that's the hardest part, is just getting it, just starting it.
Yeah, I think as creatives, we are perfectionists, right? And we care. We want it to be a portfolio piece. We want it to be epic. But I think that, like you said, you can't. The rule of momentum, it's like the momentum paradox, they call it, right? Like, it's so hard to ollie a skateboard or jump a skateboard if you don't have some kind of momentum, right? It's harder to do it standing still. And so a lot of people, they get caught up in this idea of, man, I don't have like a good enough camera or my audio, or I need to buy lights, and I watch, Casey Neistat or something like that. I need it to be like that. And I agree with this point. No, you don't need it to be like that. What you need to do is just start. And I think it's the people that start and they learn by failing, they fail forward. I think those people actually get through that awkward stage a whole lot quicker. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I look at my first videos, they're cringy. They're like super bad. I didn't know how to talk to the camera yet, and I didn't know anything about lighting or audio, but I just kind of went for it out of kind of naivety or whatever. But I think that worked out well. And now my encouragement to people is always this: just start. So I would ask this question out there in the chat and, kind of pitch in, because he was saying she's very camera shy. What other things kind of stop you? Is it imposter syndrome? Let us know in the chat. And while you're doing that, maybe we'll come back and answer that question. But we got a lot of these points. We want to make sure we get this quality content in. As you're answering that question,
Yes.
what stops you? I think the second point that kind of we put down on the list was this idea of quick imagery, the idea of creating a brand, right? Like, everything has to be consistent, and maybe you're not a designer. Maybe you're an audio engineer, right? And you want to make content about like audio engineering, right? You're like, now I got to learn some sort of design software. What kind of tips do you think we could offer people to not only like just point and shoot, start making it, but to figure out that branding piece or that imagery piece or all the aspects of content creation? Any tips there?
Yeah, I think the thing that also is a big challenge for us is we kind of put all these roadblocks, right? Like, oh, I'm scared to like upload something. I don't know. I don't have anything profound to say. Oh, I need to like design something. I need to think about my branding. And so we're just trying to like remove all these barriers. And branding is one of the biggest pieces. Especially now more than ever, authenticity and thinking more about your value versus how beautiful something is becoming a big trend ever since TikTok started to become, bigger and bigger and bigger. So we're starting to see that people don't mind if your branding is all off. Before, if you recall, remember when you go on Instagram and everyone's like pictures had a certain aesthetic?
Yes.
And that was like really important. A lot of influencers were talking about that. And now they're like, actually, you don't need to have this really consistent aesthetic. You can still have a great channel. And so I've been thinking less and less about branding. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to put something quick. And what I use is Express. I use Creative Cloud Express. And so I make all my thumbnails, all of my flyers, and anything I create for my events, I do through Express. And I find that I can do it all on my phone really quickly. So I film on my phone, I edit in CapCut. It's a free editing software that you can then easily upload onto Instagram, TikTok, all the things. And then I do my titles and my thumbnails in Express on my phone. So everything is done in my phone, and it's like done within like 20 minutes. And it's like, boom, it's out there.
I also kind of think I have Express kind of up on the screen as we're talking about it, right? This is like the tool that you can jump in there and you're like, I have no design background. Like, I'm just showing like my screen right now of like, maybe you want to create an Instagram post. I'm just going to click on a new post, right? I jump in there and it has a bunch of amazing templates to kind of start from. So maybe I'm like, I wouldn't take the time to design like this, like the template that I have in front of me. Like, that's a lot of effort, emphasis. I got to go learn about color theory, all that kind of stuff. Now you just open up Express, slap this thing on, customize it a little bit. You can add animations and do all kinds of stuff with it. And then I kind of think back to our point of, using something quick, fast, easy, whether it's like using your phone, jumping in Express, whatever it is. It's like, don't worry about getting your branding and all these things perfect. Start with quick things and then kind of mold yourself into it. Maybe you'll find some sort of aesthetic, some sort of brand, some sort of style or vibe that works for you. And I know that that's
Yeah.
been my thing. I can look at other people's channel on YouTube, and from day one, they have this crisp, perfect, clean kind of like branding across every thumbnail. And mine is not so great, right? Mine kind of evolved over the years. And I say, hey man, evolve into it if you're not quite ready, but don't let that thing stop you. So I love Express. I just want to jam one more thing about Express. I'm going to open it back up because this idea of like creating quick imagery, it's also this idea of like, I mean, you said like you do stuff on your phone in 20 minutes because you can use Express on your phone. I love this feature I just found recently in Express. I'm just going to navigate back to it. And that's the schedule feature. And it's a social media scheduling platform. And it's awesome. You can just click on schedule, which is like what I'm doing right now. And it pops that thing open. I can upload all of the things I make in Express directly to schedule, and then I can schedule my posts out across multiple platforms. So I have like posts here on the screen. They're gonna go up like today, tomorrow, the next day. And I did all the video editing in Express for like my Reels or my like YouTube shorts, and then I just popped it right in. So I like, again, that's just like another tool that's like easy, like low hanging fruit, like quick to market. I just think do it quick, do it fast, and get to the stuff that really matters, which is your quality content.
Yeah. I didn't even know before today that there was that schedule option until you told me, which I'm really excited about because I am not someone who schedules my things. I've used other tools in the past and I'm like, I don't really care to. It's too much work for me to think about like, what is the time that works best? I just upload when I feel like it.
Yeah.
But I think like when things become so easy to like, if they're so easily integrated, it makes it easier for me to be like, okay, maybe I will schedule it for tomorrow at 10 a.m. versus tonight at 11 p.m. maybe when there will get not as many views. But I think like to people who are like worrying about scheduling too, don't worry about that either. Like that's another barrier. People are like, oh, I need to be consistent. I need to post 2-3 times a week at these times. Don't worry about all of that. Just start creating. And then like Jesse, to your point, like the more you start creating, the more you find your voice, the more you find your branding style, the more you find out what is your personality style. And what is the feedback you're getting? Like what types of content and what things about your personality are other people vibing with? Right. And I think that kind of goes to another point, which is actually build connection on your social media. Right. Like even with you, Jesse, I talked about how we got to actually meet in person, right? Or in person, online, in person, kind of in person. That's our online. Best way of getting in person now. And, we got to actually build a connection there. And for me, the way that I use and I think about my social media is kind of like a great user research tool. I get to ask people questions and learn more about them, and they feel like they're heard and engaged. And then they share with me content that they really like, things that I'm talking about that they really vibe with. And then because of that, we're actually really building a connection. Yeah. And then because of that, I'm also able to build out more content that is connective and helpful to other people. And I think that before it was always like, what are all the things I can just give, just spout out all these tips and education and just like make it a really one-way experience. And the beautiful thing about social media is that it gets to be a two-way, and you can have direct message conversations. You can hop on a video chat with somebody. And I know that can be scary initially to think about perhaps, but even just having a nice little conversation with voice notes helps you to actually feel more connected to people out there.
Yeah, I actually really love that feature, like especially in Instagram, it shouldn't be a monologue. It should be a dialogue, right? And so if you want people to engage in your content, because hopefully your content is engaging, it's valuable, then there has to be an engagement portion on your part. Like if you're not interested in anybody's content, if you're not interested in engaging with anybody's like expertise or the value they bring to you, what kind of like engagement or value are you actually really offering? What you're really doing is like you're selling, right? And I would much rather just offer people like relationship, engagement, value than try to sell people things. And I think I love the feature of just kind of like, if somebody comments on my stuff, if I have a couple minutes, I mean, instead of just scrolling like this, like mindlessly on TikTok or Instagram, it's like, how cool is it just to open up a DM with that person, hit audio record, go, hey, thanks so much for like commenting on this. What do you think about such and such? And they're like, wow, now we're actually, I've made friends, like you and I have kind of connected and become kind of online buddies. I've joined masterminds with people, met up with people in real life, all because of social media. That's why it was invented. It wasn't invented to be a one-way marketing channel. It was invented to connect with people. And so I think that idea is like that point is really, really powerful. I also think that the way that people, like you're kind of saying, engage with you and connect with you, you have to be passionate about, you have to find your niche, you have to find your vertical, you have to find your thing. And part of that is, if you want to show up every day and make content, it's really hard to do if you're not actually interested or in love with that thing. So I would much rather have somebody make less content they're actually passionate about than more content about things they hate, right? Like, and they're like, ugh, this is just such a bear. I got to show up and talk about fishing again. Like, you know, I'm not going to start a fishing YouTube channel. I'm going to start a different type of channel. So, hey, if you love fishing, start a fishing channel for sure. But, you know, I just think what thoughts do people out there and maybe what thoughts do you have about finding like the thing you're passionate about, something you want to show up for daily or weekly to make content on? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's so important to just care about the things that you talk about. And it sounds so simple, but it sometimes isn't because especially if we spend time on social media, we see what other people are talking about. We see what trends are coming out and we're like, okay, we want to mimic some things that are out there. We want to mimic somebody that we really like and the type of content that they create. But then because we're so focused on what's already out there, we start to not understand exactly within us what we want to talk about, what matters to us. So I think the important thing to think about is spending time with yourself and understanding what are things that you kind of continuously come up for you. Like, you know, what are recurring thoughts that come up for you? What is something that you see that's potentially trending that you don't agree with, that you're like, I don't really like that? What is something you're internally facing right now? Maybe it's the idea of not wanting to create content and being afraid of. That could be your story. Hey, this is my journey of trying to create content as someone who's really camera shy, and you can talk about that. And maybe you just start with posts and you don't even have to show yourself. And over time, maybe you start to show a little bit more and you start to show some of the tips that you're learning, right? So it's really about owning your own journey, your story, your thoughts. And that can be really scary to share sometimes. But that's your niche. That's what makes you you. And that's what makes you different from everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, I could have been really detoured. I agree with you. I could have been really detoured to start another design channel because there's already so many talented creatives. And honestly, like, you know, I can get back to that imposter syndrome thing. I could think to myself, there are so many more talented designers. People get design circles around me. What value do I have really to offer anybody? I'm not Chris Doe who's trying to teach you how to sell $50,000 logos. I'm not, you know, like Satori Graphics who's teaching you how to, you know, like design layouts. He's been doing it way longer than me. I'm just not those people. So what do I have? Well, maybe what I have is just one step, just a little bit further down the road than somebody else, right? So I'm not trying to offer people this massive thing. I'm just trying to offer them whatever I have. And I always think to myself, I encourage people, if you know one thing, it's very well might be true that that's one thing that somebody else doesn't have. And you can be helpful to somebody, to that one person, to that small subsect of people. And so, you know, like as I'm building my channel, yes, it's a design channel. It's about creativity, but I don't focus on selling $40,000 or $50,000 logos. I focus on getting people into the industry. They don't have to wash dishes and wait tables like I did. Get your first job as a junior designer. Learn the tool you need. That's my angle. That's my differentiator. And I think my differentiator, it has to come from who you just generally are. I could put on a ball cap and glasses and try to be Chris Doe and be like, I sell, you know, hundreds of thousands of, I'm like, but I'd be faking it, right? I'm the happy kind of helpful guy. I kind of love talking with my hands and teach people in real life. And I want you to have cool things. I want you to have a rad life. And so like, if that's who I am in real life, just let that come out on camera. So like you're saying, if you're a shy person, if you're camera shy, if you care about this thing or that thing, it's like, just focus on that. There's somebody out there who needs that from you. And so I think you can get past a little bit of that imposter syndrome by leaning into your authenticity, being who you, or your authenticity, and like being who you actually are. I think that's so important, you know? And I think that you've done a really, really good job of that. Like I've seen you pivot over the last like year or two from just doing kind of like UX content into talking about things that you're passionate about, like public speaking or presenting work or things that have been really important to you. How do you kind of think about evolving like your content, you know, like don't get so pigeonholed in how you started, but instead like kind of like change it and evolve it into who you actually want to be? How do you think about that?
Well, I think like something for the last few years, I really decided that having a huge following is not really what matters for me. And I think if you are attached to the metrics and the numbers and the audience you've built, and you really care about growth, and growing numbers, then it might be harder for you to want to pivot, right? Because you're like, wait, I've just built this like whole thing with this big audience, like, oh no. And I think for me, what I found was that I really cared more about having a connection with the people that I'm chatting with. So thinking more about engagement and thinking more about, for me, the purpose of it, or purpose of my content. And I mentioned this earlier, which was like only after maybe a month of creating content, my first month with my crappy content, I was getting opportunities. I was getting people to ask me to speak. I had people ask me to, oh, hey, I got like design jobs for you. The more you start putting yourself out there, like you mentioned, Jesse, there's that snowball effect, and more and more people start to interact with you. And I already had that with like less than 1,000 followers. So I was like, for me, it's not about like having the most followers, because I'm already gaining a lot of opportunities just from having a smaller audience and from having people connect with me. So that was never the big thing. And I think that was really helpful for me, because even though I don't have a huge following, it was like 15,000 on Instagram, I was still really scared to like change things up, because I was like, my audience is going to be like, what? You talk about UX, your name is Elize UX, what's going on here? And I realized like I no longer am excited to talk about design tips. I'm not even designing anymore as a job. I'm a speaker. I talk about design. So this is more authentic to my experience and where I'm at and what I've learned now. And I started to, again, like coming back to, I think, tip number 3, which was like actually connect. I started to just talk about it with my audience, like stories, like I'm thinking about doing this. What do you guys think? And just talking about how I am nervous about it and trying to get to see what other people think about it. And I had a lot of web calls with people, with my audience, and asking them their experience around having any challenges with their presentations and stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe I can help people with this. Yeah. So I think it's really understanding what really is the purpose for you to create your content. And you don't have to have that right out the get-go when you first start creating. It's just about creating. But at some point you want to think, well, why am I doing this? You know, what is the real purpose? Is it just for vanity metrics? Is it for real engagement? You have to really dig deep at some point, and that will help you kind of understand how to move forward to the next step and what feels good and feels right for yourself.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. You know, if you start creating content with this hope of becoming rich from it, or creating a content empire, or having like hundreds of thousands of subscribers or followers, like those are vanity metrics. Those are things that, like, really at the end of your life, you know, laying on your deathbed, you're not going to go, oh, I wish I made one more piece of content. Oh, I wish I had one more follower. You're not going to think those things. But if it's about creativity, if it's about following your passions, if it's about offering value, if it's about just kind of being who you already naturally are and just putting that thing online for other people to enjoy, you're already winning. You wake up every day and you just win. Just by being you and being comfortable in your own skin, you just kind of win every day. And so for me, I would just encourage people, there's something amazing in you. There's something special in you that people could learn from you. Everybody's unique. Everybody's awesome. And all you got to do is just put that online. Somebody could really get something awesome out of that. if you just see that as your metric of success, you wake up every day not stressed or strained or depressed or frustrated about who's watching or how many people are watching. And you know, we're kind of coming up on our time of our boot camp today about content creation. But you know, we talked about things like just getting started, just point and shoot. Don't worry about the quality. Don't worry about the quantity. About using good tools and processes, things like Adobe Express to get you started. Don't worry about the brand. All that kind of stuff will follow. And to be engaged and be passionate and really focus on your authenticity. Maybe you came here today to the stream with Elize and I thinking we're going to learn about cameras and lighting and all, you know, the technical aspect, but those are the things that matter least, you know, in my opinion. I think you would agree the same way with how we've kind of been talking today. People are asking lots of questions in the chat, and I would love to hang out and chat with people. You can DM both of us and like find us on Instagram. We would love to chat with you about it more. But there's a lot of good bootcamp content coming up, so stay tuned. And Elize, any last thoughts? Where can people find you, and any last words you have before we jump off today?
Yeah, you can find me at Elize, _presents. And my last words is always, it's something that Oprah says, which is like, how can we uncomplicate things? How are we making things more complicated than they need to be? And that's just a mantra I keep in my world. And I think that's really relevant to content creation. And so that's what we hope that you take away from today is It's not actually that complicated.
Yeah, that's amazing. Hey, with that, that's a perfect way to end. It couldn't be more perfect than that. So thank you everybody for showing up for the bootcamp today, and stay tuned for more awesome content here on Adobe Live. We'll chat with you soon. Take care.